You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White, one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there?
Oh, hi. Thank you for asking. I'm doing okay. It's been a long weekend. We went to the Hill Farmstead Anniversary Extravaganza in
Scenic Burlington, Vermont?
No, it's not in Burlington. It's in, it's like the middle of nowhere. I can't remember. The nearest town, I believe, is Hardwick, which is a very, very, very small town. So we're out in this beautiful rolling hills. I drank glasses of fancy beer that costs a lot more than your non-fancy beers would cost. And then we went to Burlington, which, as I have described in the past, is sort of like Durham, New Hampshire in the early 90s. So,
you know, listeners, you know that whole town, Durham, New Hampshire?
Yeah, from way back.
Yeah, no, the important part is that I know what you're talking about. And you know what? I'm down with that. I could hang there.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you think the jokes are funny, I guess that's really all that matters.
I mean, we're just here to entertain one another. I mean, let's just get fucking real with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's great, man. That's good because it's been a fucking week for me too, and I'm glad that we can finally knock this one off the list.
The 90s, the first time we are going into the 90s.
True.
Everybody.
We are deep in the 90s on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. There's no one else I enjoyed chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod, and Dave's over there at That Queer Wolf.
Yes.
We have a good time. We have a lot of fun. Play games with our followers. You'd be doing yourself a favor by following us. So
You'd be doing me a favor too.
Yeah. It makes me happy. You want to make people happy, don't you? Maybe. And also I'm on doing the TikTok thing. Fucking so help me God. I don't
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
You're doing the TikTok thing.
Yeah. Definitely love having our videos taken out of context and repurposed to make us look like pearl-clutching ninnies. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love how you can just do that over there. That's so much
real
fucking
woke
fun.
warriors.
Yeah, and if you don't know, we've got another show called 99-Cent Rental, where we cover all manner of video store madness on the weeks that bring me the axes off. Our latest episode, covering 10 to Midnight, is out now with our esteemed guest, Jeff Nelson. And we'll be back next week as we kick off our Pride series with a look at Siege from 1983. You can also
Canadian movie,
quite Canadian. You can also contact
clearly Canadian, you might say.
You can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Search for us by name and subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please do. I invite you to. It's your gift. It's your gift to us. And it's easy. And if you listen on YouTube, do us a favor. Give the episode a like and leave a comment. We do so love hearing from you guys. I just want to get that all out of the way at the top of the show because, hey, Dave.
Yeah, well.
Who's this over here?
Well, we have not one. We have but two guests today. They are the hosts of Morbid, of The Rewatcher, of Scream, and they are two of my favorite people in the world. It is Ash, Kelley, and Alaina Urquhart. Hello and welcome to our virtual salon.
Hello, brothers.
What a lovely introduction.
That was great.
Yeah, we're here at the salon. We'll be consuming bromides and talking about horror films.
Yes.
I'm here for it.
I tried to think of ways to introduce you two that I was like, how can I do this that makes them seem like individuals? And then I was like, you know what? I don't think I can. So
I will not.
No, we're a package deal.
I like it. I love it. Thanks for having us.
I know. Thank you.
We're excited to talk about this today.
Well, I'm glad you guys are.
This was actually Ash's suggestion.
Yep.
It was. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, and I'm glad because this is a movie that I am fascinated with in very strange ways, and there is definitely a lot to talk about when it comes to this movie. So, without further ado, I'm gonna give you a little taste. Give you a taste of what we're talking about tonight.
This is my home, which I am leaving the comforts of for the weekend to explore the Blair Witch. I can see you.
I'm real excited about this. Thank you for
I'm
the
very
opportunity.
glad.
This area's been haunted by that old woman for years.
I don't know why you have to have every conversation on video.
Because we're making a documentary.
Not about us getting lost. We're making a documentary about a witch.
I know.
We're lost. Admit that first.
No, I know we're not lost.
You're all over the place.
So how do we know it was people?
Well, even if it wasn't, I'm not going to play with that either.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold and hunted. Just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom.
Tell me where you are, Josh!
I'm gonna die out here.
So spooky.
Listen,
I
that
love
is
it
not the
so
movie we
much.
watched. That is a better
That is the
movie than the one we
movie.
watched.
That is it.
That is
What do you mean?
Ah, the Blair Witch Project is tonight's movie.
Can I just say, Heather Donahue looks like every girl I went to high school with. Just in the beginning part where she's got like her hair is kind of down. It's
You know
like
what it
a
is?
little
It's that,
bit.
it's
And she
that,
has
it's
the
that
claw.
hairband thing
Yes,
that you had.
the
It was
headband.
perfectly,
Yeah.
a perfect 90s artifact. Because
It's the claw headband.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
It
buffy.
brings the bangs back. I had every color of that. I had ones with rhinestones on it. That is the headband.
They're coming back. I just bought one.
Oh, damn.
God bless you. Yeah. So, I think so we're kind of dancing around it, but yeah, like right off the top of the movie, like this, I don't understand what people see in this movie, and it is so weird because I feel very lonely in that position. Because like when I was doing all the research for this, like I'm looking up, I'm like, yeah, let's put this in the letterboxd. We'll see what some of my friends think of this, and they're just like, greatest movie ever, so goddamn scary, and I'm like, what movie did you watch? Like I need to know. I need to understand this. So,
That's my reaction is like irrational frustration and anger.
start to get
Like,
start to get
why?
mad
I
at the
don't
internet.
understand. Why? What am I missing? I feel like it's me.
That's the
Some
thing.
of
I
it's
start to
gotta
take it
be-
very personally.
Some of it's got to be nostalgia based.
I think
And I
a
will
lot of it
admit that
actually it
for
is
me.
that because I think that for a particular
Yeah.
generation, this movie dropped.
Yes.
It just the perfect time, and also as we're gonna talk about it, 1999 was a crazy year for movies, particularly that summer. So
there you go.
Yeah.
It kind of fell at the right time.
yeah.
See, it's not nostalgia based for me because I was 3. So
Okay, so for some of us,
Damn.
no. So when I saw this movie when it was being tested out, because I was going to school in Orlando, Florida at the time in 1998, and there was a video store, and this movie was all post produced in Orlando. And there was a video store that I used to hang out at that was kind of a grimy kind of shit. It was a video store that kind of, just stocked movies that I wanted to see. And the guy was like, hey, you should go over to the Enzion tonight if you got nothing going on. There's like a free movie tonight, something about a witch. And I was like, shit, let's go. And so my wife and I went, and it was the Blair Witch Project. And so when the movie ran, we were just like, okay. And the Enzion's are still there. It's a really, really nice, like, art house movie theater. And then when the movie was over, they pulled out some microphones, and they're like, okay, we're going to do some Q&A now if you guys want to talk to the filmmakers and the cast. And like 90% of the movie theater just kind of like got up and shuffled out, like me among them. I was like, those poor filmmakers.
that hurts.
Yeah.
Like the other 10% stood up and said, yeah, I have a question. What the fuck was that?
And so then like a year later, I come home and I'm sort of getting set up and trying to find a job and all this stuff. And that summer rolled out, and that all of a sudden, like, there's trailers for that. Like, that trailer ran out in front of the Star Wars movie that year. And I turned to Denise and I was like, is that fucking movie we saw in Florida that like everybody was bored by? And then like I was blown away like a month later when it comes out, and like this is like the sensation of the summer, like that and The Sixth Sense. And so I was just mystified. Like people going out getting lost in the woods around Maryland and shit. Like it's crazy. And we're going to talk about all of that stuff. So shall we run some facts here?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go.
All right. So the year was 1999. So here's some other movies that were released in 1999. Ravenous was released in 1999. It's not bad.
Okay.
It's not bad.
Good.
I have fond memories of it. Like I said, The Sixth Sense The fucking, people still be making jokes about The Sixth Sense. And I fully admit, I was pretty surprised at the end of that one.
People still get mad when you spoil that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like, it's 2024, and people are like, whoa, don't spoil that. It's like
you've had 24 years.
I know.
I remember our sister Bridget went to see it. I don't know why I didn't go with her, but I didn't. And she's like, "Oh my God, you got to see this movie." And then she sort of tells me what it's about. And she gets about 3/4 of the way through telling me what it's about. And I was like, "Bruce Willis is dead, isn't he?" And she's like, "God damn it."
Wow.
She ruined it.
Just blew it.
I ruined it.
Ruined it for yourself.
All right. Also in 1999, we had Idle Hands.
That's good.
That's a cute little movie.
I loved Idle Hands.
Yeah, I have not
shit.
seen
I didn't
it in
know that
some
was
time. I should check it out. It seems very much a kind of a product of its era.
Yeah, if I watched it again, I would probably hate it.
Yeah. On the flip side, Audition came out in 1999.
Wow.
Which is a fucking grinder.
This is
of
a
movie.
year.
Yeah. Yep. And rounding it out, Stir of Echoes came out in 99.
Oh, another great one.
Just a banger.
Yeah, that's an underrated movie.
Yeah.
And this is just like horror movies. This is to say nothing of like Phantom Menace came out that year, and the fucking Matrix came out that year. And,
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
like it was crazy.
Now, what everybody can't see is that as we're running through these movies and
I was
Elena's
waiting
excited,
for
the look on Ash's face is like, movies, huh? Okay.
I told you I was
I've
3.
heard of those.
3.
Now, every time a movie comes up and Ash is like, I've never seen it, I always say, well, then I'm going to make you watch it. And I have lived up to that many
true.
times.
You really
at this
have.
point.
He has.
I've seen a lot of great movies thanks to you.
Yeah, it's true.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, cast and crew. We got the directors.
It's fucking nobody you've ever heard of.
There are two dudes. We got Daniel Myrick and a guy named Eduardo Sanchez. And the curse of the hyper successful indie director kind of starts with these poor guys. In the same way that Oren Peli's name was kind of attached to everything as an executive producer after he made Paranormal Activity, and then he like never directed ever again. These guys follow a sort of similar pattern. Like, they've done some work, and Sanchez has actually stayed fairly busy with television, but Myrick kind of vanishes.
Damn.
A little while
It's a
ago. Like, he's
curse.
still making stuff, and I think he's still doing documentaries, but like he's not terribly active.
It's the Blair Witch.
Blair Witch,
He
man.
did it.
It's
She got him.
Yeah, it's a curse.
Curse of the Blair Witch. But yeah, but what was it? Eduardo Sanchez has a short in VHS 2, which I believe has both Josh Leonard and Michael Williams in it from this movie. And he's also got, I believe he's got a short in Satanic Hispanics as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his is actually pretty good in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, these poor guys, they kind of got bought out, and they seem to struggle for quite a while.
Yeah, this is the quintessential Hollywood grinder. Like everybody on this movie got fucked.
I'm gonna talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit, because the way that the sort of careers of all of the principal players in this movie kind of worked out after this movie, you would thought that based on how big this fucking movie was, that they would have, like, every door in Hollywood would have been open to them. They could have done whatever that they wanted, and most of them kind of vanished. Chief among them, poor Heather Donahue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where's
Heather.
she?
She lives in Maine now, and her name is Ray Hance. Yeah, of the 3 principals in this movie, she probably got screwed the hardest. Everybody else in the cast and the directors stayed in film in some capacity, but her involvement in this movie more or less ruined her life, which I will elaborate on in a few minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, the backlash against her was particularly awful and horribly misogynistic.
Extremely
Wow.
sexist.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So following
Damn.
this, she acts a little bit here and there, mostly in unseen indies. And there's also like an early episode of It's Always Sunny that she's in. And
She was on that show Taken for a while, that alien show.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but then she calls it quits, and she retreats to Northern California and starts a cannabis grow operation up there. Before
girl.
I feel like that's right.
before falling on really hard times, getting mixed up in addiction and alcoholism, and her own name was so polluted by this role that she had to change it as a part of her recovery.
God damn.
Wow. That's sad.
Wow.
That's tragic.
I knew nothing of this.
Yeah. I listened. She was a guest on a podcast called "Everything Is Fine," and I listened to that, and she just kind of goes through exactly how her life was affected by this movie. The principals in this movie were all paid $1,000 by Haxan Films to be in it. And then after the movie got picked up and sort of exploded, Artisan paid them nothing.
Wow.
I think they won a lawsuit though recently, didn't they?
I fucking hope they did.
So there's currently a lawsuit. If it hasn't been decided yet, then it is currently in court where they are arguing that they are owed, residuals based on this movie.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, in that podcast, she tells a story about the night that I think the three of them were booked on Leno, and she was driving over to the studio, and her car broke down on the way under one of those massive Sunset Boulevard billboards of her own face advertising this movie, which is just the saddest shit I've ever heard.
That is the saddest thing I've ever heard.
That's a juxtaposition and a half.
It's those two things are just here's Hollywood, everybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So we've also got Michael Williams. He said to the New York Times in 1999, after the release of the movie, and after details about the deal that Haxan made with Artisan emerged, "I'm sure they're going to take care of me, and even if they don't, I don't care, because you know what? I'm going to be on Jay Leno in 2 weeks."
Oh, no.
As long as your car doesn't break down.
Under a billboard of your face.
And just the confidence, and I'm sure they're going to take care of me. It's
heartbreaking.
Sweet summer child.
It's so naive and heartbreaking. It's not really clear what he's up to these days, but I believe he's involved in stage work around New York. And like everybody else involved in this movie, stumbles a bit after Blair Witch and kind of reemerges about 10 years after in indie movies here and there.
Woof.
Yeah.
I know.
Rounding it out,
none of this.
Josh Leonard seemed to recover the best out of the three. He does not have the same
Wow.
post Blair Witch slump that the others two had, and he immediately lands roles on TV and indie movies. He directs a couple of his own projects and continues to act fairly steadily. And he's also married to Alison Pill.
Yeah, he was on
Wow.
Togetherness on HBO.
Yeah.
Look at this
That
guy.
shit.
Horrible, tragic show.
Yeah. So it's not all
bad.
rainy days.
That's not all shit
all
sandwiches. Josh Leonard got to be on HBO.
There you go.
Yeah, there's always a small win.
So we got a tagline here. There's two, but I'm not going to do the other one because it's really fucking long.
Yeah, it's more of a log line than a tagline.
It really is. So the one tagline is, "Everything you've heard is true."
Spooky.
I love it. I love it.
Try harder, movie.
It's also just false.
I know.
All of that is
but
false.
and we're going to talk about the marketing because that's a big part of the marketing of the movie.
Yeah, everything you've heard is true, and that might be part of the problem here.
Oh, no.
The marketing is genius.
So this movie was produced originally on a budget of $60,000. It was shot in 8 days. And it was bought by Artisan at Sundance for $1.1 million.
So it actually comes out to about, in the end, it comes out to about $750,000 that's post-production and what Artisan kicks in for marketing. But
No. The marketing budget is its own thing. It was cost $25 million to sell this movie.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
After Artisan picked it up, they were like, okay, we've got to tune this up a little bit. So there were reshoots and shit, and they spent a little bit more money on the product, and it comes out to I don't know, $250,000 or something like that.
Damn.
It pulled down nearly $250 million in box office around the world, making it the most profitable indie horror movie since Halloween until Paranormal Activity took the crown. It was the most successful indie movie until 2002 when it was unseated by My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I hate those facts, except for the Big Fat Greek Wedding. I'm fine with that one. I hate the fact that it's more successful than Halloween. Get the fuck out of here. I hate you. Shut up.
Yeah.
Just based on numbers.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Numbers schmumbers.
Yep. Let's see. Let's see. And as we're going to find out, very little of this movie actually takes place in Burkittsville.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There are two sequels. There's Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, which was directed by Joe Berlinger, who famously brought the plight of the West Memphis Three to the public attention.
Terrible movie.
What? The
Book of Shadows.
That's the thing is I remember seeing it when it came out on video, and I remember my thoughts were, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
That's what I thought.
That's never good though.
But
I
I have-
when it came
but I
out
have-
on video, and we were like,
I have no memory
that
of
was
it beyond
stupid.
that. Yeah.
me neither.
That was
I
a
couldn't tell
movie.
you one thing,
I never saw it.
But
but I do remember my reaction being like, I thought that would be worse.
It is a movie that is basically he went into it trying to make something very, very different. The studio, like halfway through, was like, "Oh no, you need to make it more like a big budget horror movie." And he was like, "Well, I don't know how to make those," and that is very evident because it feels like two movies stitched together. Neither one of them makes any sense,
Yeah.
and they make even
he's like,
less
"I
sense
told
when you
you."
push them together.
Yeah, because after
told them.
that, he goes back and he makes like 2 more West Memphis 3
Yeah.
docs. Yeah.
And those are great.
They
Stick with
are
what you're good at.
fucking amazing.
They are.
Yeah. Those movies,
Yeah.
that first one broke my fucking heart.
Oh my
when I
god,
saw
that
it.
Yeah.
first one destroys me to this day.
Oh my god, it's unreal. Yeah, and then Adam Wingard directed Blair Witch in 2018, which I have not seen. I've seen clips. I'm all good. And
Haven't seen that.
And I'm told that there's a remake on the way.
Oh wow.
Oh no,
They don't need to.
No.
no.
You
We're
know what?
done.
Hollywood
Don't
does
do
Hollywood
it.
does what it wants, you know?
Yeah, we're deep in
true.
the throes of remake city right
Oh,
now, and I don't
God.
really understand why.
It's almost like we're
Yeah.
going through that sort of like nostalgia cycle where the like last generation has nostalgia for the fucking last generation's nostalgia. So everybody's getting nostalgic about all those fucking remakes from like 20
relate to
years
that.
ago. And so they're like, hey, let's do another wave of remakes.
And I feel like the explosion of social media and the internet and where it's gone now has made it so like people don't have to sit with their thoughts anymore.
Yeah.
And like you don't sit there and just like think of creative ideas anymore.
Yeah.
You're looking at other people's things all the time. So it's like all we're gonna do from here on out is just regurgitate other people's things in different versions of it.
I
'Cause it's like,
stop.
don't.
people need to
I
just
do not
sit.
disagree with that. That's
Can we get better source material then?
no, absolutely not.
That's or just sit alone with your thoughts for a minute.
I mean,
Log
look,
off.
the new Omen movie. Like, look, the Omen movies were not good to begin with.
no, it's why does it keep happening?
I don't know.
Like the Lost Boys?
No, the fact that
That
they're remaking
feels
that is
completely
so
necessary.
upsetting.
Yeah. Oh well, there are several video game adaptations. There have been several TV show pilots that were not picked up for series, and a series of young adult novels said to have been written by Heather's cousin.
Amazing.
I love just Heather's cousin, not
No,
named.
they had a name, but I didn't bother to write it. I didn't
Doesn't
bother.
matter.
It does not
See,
matter.
but-
This
but really,
this
who
person
did?
does not exist. It was like a series of ghostwriters. There was also a soundtrack album released to coincide with the movie's release, even though there is approximately one song in the movie heard in the car at the beginning of the movie, and then there's a sort of soundscape at the end that plays over the credits by Tony Cora. The song in the car
love
is
it.
not on the soundtrack.
Amazing.
But what music
course
there
not.
is fucking great. It's all real deep cut like goth and industrial tracks from like Laibach and Frontline Assembly and Skinny Puppy. It's basically like a mixtape
thank
that
you.
I would have made in 1999.
I want to listen to this. I've never listened to
It's
this.
so
We need to
great. It
find it.
really
Yeah.
is fucking awesome. They're all like prime cuts from really great artists. There's a Lydia Lunch cover of Gloomy Sunday on there that's like
I've heard that. That's from something else, I think.
it's been used several times because it's a kick-ass track.
I think that's on the X-Files soundtrack.
Oh, I got to listen to this.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It's on YouTube. Look it up. When the movie played at Sundance, Myrick and Sanchez engaged in a bit of guerrilla marketing by advertising the movie with a series of missing flyers, and you can find them online. To give this campaign a bit of juice, the principals were not invited to the screening as many cast players and filmmakers typically are. And the filmmakers had the phone number for the Frederick County Sheriff's Office on it, and you better believe they received some calls about the missing filmmakers.
Now,
Of
this might be
course.
where things go wrong.
Yeah. While it is not the first found footage horror movie, it's easily the movie that sold the format most broadly to independent filmmakers looking to make the most of a small budget. What follows is literally hundreds of crappy found footage horror movies.
And I would say that even though it's not the first found footage there, because there's stuff like Ghost Watch, there's the terrible McPherson tapes.
I
You can
love
even-
the McPherson tapes. I want to talk about it because it's awesome. Cannibal
But,
Holocaust also.
Cannibal Holocaust, but like those aren't quite this. Those are bigger budget than, well, not the McPherson tapes, but things like Ghostwatch and things like Cannibal Holocaust. They have a budget. They're made by professional filmmakers with a lot of experience. They feel like movies. They feel like feature films. This has a very different feel to it. This feels like something you and your friends could have made. And I think that's part of the appeal of it. But I understand when people are like, no, this is the first one, because this is really the first one that inspires everything that follows. This is the beginning of the trend. It might not be the first quote unquote found footage, but it is, I think, the first of this type of found footage movie.
Yeah, I agree. It has like those really like those conversations between friends. That's probably part of why people are like, this is boring, because some of the conversations are boring because they're just conversations you would have with your friends when you're lost in the woods. So it's like that. This was the first one that I saw that was like, I felt like it was real because of that, because it wasn't always entertaining me. It was like, oh yeah, we do that.
Yeah. So
we do have conversations.
Yeah, we do.
We have conversations that are not very interesting all the time.
Well, and you and your friends videoed everything.
To an outside person.
I mean, 3/4 of the time I'm talking, I'm thinking, God, you're an idiot. Stop saying things.
Yep. So after Artisan picked the movie up, they added some scenes to the movie to clarify some murky shit at the beginning and at the ending. The scene with a guy who explains that the witch supposedly stood kids in the corner was added to kind of give some context to the ending, but also Artisan hated the way that it ended, since it just kind of it just kind of falls flat.
I love the ending.
So they shot 3 other endings. One where Heather turns the corner to see Mike sort of levitating before she's killed. One where she finds him hanging from a noose in a room full of those stick men. And one where Mike is crucified to a giant stick man.
Now that I want that.
That's
I want
a
the
fun
crucifixion.
Sick in a good way.
On a stick man.
Yeah. Yep.
Or I want her to come around the corner and he's just eating the other guy.
There you go.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Dave's
Anything
alternative
is better
ending.
than what we get.
Yeah.
No,
Which is
disagree.
I like this ending.
In the end, they end up keeping the original ending.
I love it.
Yep.
I want to ask, though, before we go any further, Ash, you did recommend. So I threw this out to the room and said, what is the quintessential 90s horror movie? This was your choice. And I said, I think I have to agree with that. Why this one? Why did you choose that? I know you guys are both big fans of this. Why this?
I think it's one of the main 90s movies that I've seen. So,
Okay.
like horror movies that I've seen.
When I think 90s horror movies, there's a real sort of low hanging fruit that I go for, and it's
Scream
not,
is the answer.
Scream is the one. It's not this one, but
I said Scream, and you said anything other than Scream.
And there's a reason why I said anything other than Scream.
Yeah, so Scream is my go-to.
Later.
Scream is my go-to, and then this, I think, I don't know if it's just because like Alaina kind of raised me on like those 2 quintessential movies. Like those were the first horror movies that I really saw.
Yeah. Also, I think, honestly, when it comes to the 90s, in spite of a couple of real clear hits, I've always felt like the 90s is a super horror movie desert. Like there's just not much. There's a bunch of them, but there's not much to talk about. Like most of the guys who are making movies in the 70s and 80s are still in doing it in the 90s, but like their fertile period is over, and like most of that decade is just like tragic failures from people who should have known better.
Yeah, they're doing it in the 90s because they have a mortgage.
yeah.
They have things to do.
Synthesizers aren't going to pay for themselves.
We have Silence of the Lambs.
So Silence of the Lambs, I believe, was your suggestion when I asked this question, Alaina. And I don't know. I don't think of that as a horror movie. I know that there's a lot of there's controversy about that. I just don't think of it as a horror movie. It doesn't jump out at me when I'm like 90s horror. That does not come to mind for me.
Interesting.
Do you think of it more as a thriller? Is that why?
I think it's like an action
psychological thriller.
Yeah. It lives in the gray area between the two, I feel
it does.
like.
Yeah.
I think it's a fucking horror movie. I'm not.
I mean, it's a great movie. I don't dislike the film. It's not what comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
So nearly the entire movie was improvised. So I don't want to hear.
No.
I don't want to hear any. You shut up. I don't want to hear any of this shit about these 3 being bad actors. They were given
they are acting, are they not? You can be a bad actor and still improvise.
I think they're great.
I believed it.
I think the thing is the thing that if I'm going to give this movie any sort of credit, I think that they've got a very believable dynamic. In that
I do not. I'm coming down hard on the opposite end of that. I really do not.
Really?
I find them to be so disingenuous.
Really?
I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, there was no script. They were given an outline of a story, and each day of filming, they received notes that were left overnight by Myrick and Sanchez that would tell them what was expected to happen and how they were supposed to play these out. And sometimes these notes were meant to be kept secret, like when Mike throws the map away, basically in order to provoke a response from the others. And
That's kind of cool.
Fun.
I think that this works. That's an idea. Like, this is one of the things that when I think about this movie, I think about it's for me, it's a lot of really interesting ideas in filmmaking that for me just don't really work out in the end. But I still kind of respect it for trying to do something unusual.
Yeah,
You know?
because that's really fun.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no
And
script.
it worked for me.
I mean, there was a little bit of scripted stuff, but it's mostly the shit when like they're in town and like
Right.
and like she's doing like monologue stuff for the camera, but everybody else was like, you're this person. This is a very slim little background for you. Make your own character, and that's kind of what they did. Yeah.
That's
I
fun.
think when she was monologuing in the beginning, like doing those things where she's explaining in like the cemetery and stuff, I think she was so good in that because she was so cringy.
Super.
Yeah,
she was
so
really
cringy.
She's
cringy.
very serious. She's very
And she's got that
she's
voice
got
that she's
she's got
using.
Geraldo energy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so hammy. It's just
It's
like
so hammy,
ridiculously hammy. I don't
but
think
it feels
that they're
real.
bad actors. I think that they're not great at improvising and they don't have much to work with. You can't improvise a whole movie unless you are like a professional. And they're not really that professional. So it'll most of the time to me, it feels like these are people who are reacting in a way that they think they're supposed to. And it just doesn't come across as authentic to me. And I'll point it out when we get to them. But like, it just feels like a lot of oversized reactions, a lot of like kind of inauthentic anger, and like it just doesn't work. It doesn't feel like this is how people would react under these circumstances. I mean, under the natural circumstances, not the supernatural part.
That's how I would react.
I mean, they're just hangry
Big
all the whole time.
emotions.
Big
It's true.
emotions.
I mean, that's
I'd
how
be
I react
angry,
having to get into the
crying.
car. But like,
Yeah. The idea to use their real names was that of the actors.
and that's maybe the second bad choice
was
they
just
made.
gonna
They would come
Yeah.
to regret this decision big
Yeah.
time. A big reason for this was that their IMDb's, after the movie came out at Sundance, listed them as deceased. So and Heather's parents were even receiving cards and flowers from people who had ferreted out their home address and wanted to express their condolences.
How fucking crazy do you
that's
have
really
to be? Actually, you know
weird.
what?
Dude, this
I
story...
think two people on this call know how crazy you'd have to be.
You'd have to be real
People
crazy.
are always going to be that weird.
This story is
true.
gonna go nuts. Like, we're not even at the worst of it yet.
But I'll tell you, here's an interesting thing about using their real names. So there's a story I heard once on a separate podcast about when John Cameron Mitchell was making Short Bus, and everybody in Short Bus they're not actors. They're just sort of I guess they're acting. So they're amateurish actors, and they didn't have really character at all. He was just like, you get to tell me who you are. Who is your character? Make up your character, go home, write it out, whatever. And a couple people would come back and be like, I am, the actor's name is say Steve. And he'd be like, I am Steve. And he'd be like, no, you can't be Steve. You have to be somebody else. And he was like, well, yeah, but like my character's name is Steve. My name is Steve. But like the character's different. He was like, no, if you used your name, you're never going to be able to break away from you being you, because people are going to keep calling you Steve and you're going to keep reacting as though you are yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that
is
I don't know
interesting.
how that applies here, but it does make me think of that as like, maybe you can't be other characters because you're too busy like acting however you think you're supposed to act.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
And
that's interesting.
And so when they were selling this movie at Sundance, this is also like if you're a new filmmaker or you're just kind of coming into the scene, you're a new actor. This is also the sort of place where like agencies are looking to sort of bring you in and sort of represent you. However, the principals were not there, and the filmmakers kept telling everybody, "Oh no, they're really dead." So with nothing but hype to go on, hype insisted that these actors who were dead, the casting agencies just passed them over. And so by the time the dust had settled and everybody had everything kind of figured out, more movies had come out and those agencies had moved on, making it really hard for the cast to get more mainstream work.
Oh, that sucks so bad.
Yeah.
This is one of
Sorry,
those
we thought you were
hindsight
dead.
situations
Yep.
where they look back and they go, huh, regrets.
Guess we shouldn't have acted dead.
Damn.
Yeah, it's just like when I doing all the research on this, I was just like, it was just hit after hit. I'm like, good God,
Yeah.
these poor people. They thought like this is how we're gonna get sold, and then it just burned everybody.
This is Sideshow Bob stepping on one rake after another.
That's
It really
one.
is.
So Blair Witch was one of the first movies to fully take advantage of the internet as a weapon for public hysteria.
Now, this is what I remember about it.
Yes, and me too.
Because I didn't see this movie until about 10 years ago, so I remember this part of it.
Yeah.
I remember this part a lot. I was obsessed with the website. I thought this was real.
Yeah. So
I could not operate a computer at that time.
the film's producers fabricated news reports about the missing students. They filmed actors in police uniforms, did man on the street type interviews with actors, as well as posted all of this to the movie's website. And then the movie came out in June of 1999. By August, the website had recorded 160 million hits.
Wow.
And this is 1999 internet, like before.
That's
it was-
everyone
of
on
those
the
was
internet.
Me and my best friend. I can tell you that.
And The
We were
Curse of the
obsessed.
Blair Witch, that documentary, I think it was either on MTV or Sci-Fi, or it might have been both.
Sci-fi is what it was, yeah.
I watched that the other day, and it actually has, I mean, it has the feeling of, obviously this is a produced thing, and some of these people are clearly actors, but it also has like, I don't know if it's Josh Leonard's brother. One of their brothers is like their siblings are actually in this documentary talking as though these characters are dead. So it's like, wow, you're just really kicking that horse, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doubling down like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and so that movie has all of these like details of stuff that they had sort of made up to kind of fill in the blanks and kind of inform viewers like, okay, this is the curse of the Blair Witch. This is the legend that we're supposed to be talking about, because they don't really talk about the legend too much in the movie.
That is
No.
one of
No,
my
they
biggest
don't.
complaints about this, is that this, because everyone is like, oh, it's based so much on the lore. And I'm like, what lore?
Yeah.
They don't really talk about much of anything in this. There's like little bits and pieces that they kind of drop, but they're so vague as to be meaningless.
Yeah.
See, I think for me, that's what scared me the most watching, because my mind was filling in the blanks the whole time of like, who is she though?
Well, I want to hear your version of the story then.
I don't even really know. It just scares the shit out of me to this day.
And I agree though, like, because I love this movie. I'm like a Blair Witch apologist forever. But I have to agree a little bit with Dave on that one, with like I would have loved to get more of the lore. If you're going to give me like a folklore based found footage movie, give me it.
That's
like,
the thing.
Give
is
me it all.
It's supposed to be a big supernatural thing, and like even if you're working on a shoestring budget, you got to give me something. Like there's got to be a little spooky something in this, and there is. But what there is just a little too weak for me.
And it's all disconnected. Like none of it really seems to go together in a way that is coherent and makes any kind of sense in terms of how folklore operates, just as a narrative. It's just sort of like little pieces of things kind of jammed together to be like, here you go, spooky stuff.
I know the way that the whole thing is kind of set up, and that the directors like kind of played it all out to kind of, fill the blanks in. It all kind of works out a little bit kind of like folk horror version of the Stanford prison experiment.
Yeah. It's like someone took Salem, Massachusetts, put it in a bag and shook it up and then dumped it out.
So before the movie was in release, the Burkittsville postmaster was receiving dozens of calls a day from investigators. I say that in quote marks, looking for info about the Blair Witch legend and about the missing students. The town had 2 police deputies for its entire population of like 150 people. God. And they had to keep these guys running and patrolling the cemetery on double shifts for months.
Yeah, these are the original web
man.
sleuths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The town even notified all of the residents that a shitstorm was likely to fall on the town, and then it did.
Oh no.
Crowds of weirdos descended on the town to learn about the witch and like visit the locations and search for the missing students. The town sign, featured prominently in the opening B-roll, has been stolen 4 times.
Shit.
Artisan
Like, why are you
eventually
stealing a
paid it to have a
sign?
sign welded to a metal pole and embedded in concrete to discourage thieves.
The
my
fucking
God.
disaster that surrounded this film
Wow.
was very unknown to me.
It made its own curse.
People started putting up signs around the town that read, "The Blair Witch Project is fiction," like in big letters to everybody coming in.
The original one started with, "Hey, dummies, the Blair Witch Project is fiction."
Yeah, exactly.
But they got rid of the first part because they thought it was too rude.
They thought it was mean.
And most famously, one of these tourist psychos very publicly accused one resident of jeopardizing the lives of her children by living in a town famously haunted by an evil witch.
Oh,
No,
That's where you got to back up.
site.
The police had to
On-site,
take this
that
person
one.
away.
Yeah,
Yep.
take them away.
And
that
groups,
sounds
Get on
very
it.
Christian.
yeah.
That is.
Yeah,
It's
so
very that's
sounded
got
not
like
right.
this person is probably up to their eyeballs in QAnon these days.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And lastly, groups of utter buffoons were frequently rounded up and chased out of the cemetery for holding candlelight vigils by night for the victims of Ellie Kedward.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
So upsetting.
Imagine looking back and being like, shit, that was me. Like, oh, that's rough.
I
bad
hope
hit.
you are listening, and I hope you feel really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and what's worse is there's no real forested area around Burkittsville that resembles the one in the movie. The actual forested location is the Patapsco Valley State Park, which is some 50 miles away from Burkittsville, but it didn't stop tourists from wandering around the forested area that there was, oftentimes just wandering into people's backyards and sometimes getting lost, requiring local first responders to find them and then send them home.
Shut the
Stop
fuck
it.
up.
Yep.
Wow,
This is
everyone was acting a
A
fool.
movie did this.
Yep.
A low
That's
budget
crazy.
movie.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I was too young to be doing this kind of shit when I watched it. So.
Same.
Yep. So when the producers of the sequel turned up, so this happened. This lasted for about a year. So from 1999 to the summer of 2000, Burkittsville was just under siege by like crazy
Those
people.
poor
I
people.
know those poor people.
Then the sequel, the producers of the sequel walked in and everybody in town was like, "You get the fuck out of here right now."
That is
Turn around now.
exactly what happened, because they had a town meeting where the producers came in and were like, "Hey, how'd you like to be in a movie?" And everybody was like, "Get the fuck out of here."
We will
Yeah.
kill you
We
if
would
you
not
don't
like
leave.
to be in a movie.
So lastly, before we get into the movie, in the latest in our latest series, Is There a Porno?
Yeah, there is.
Shut up.
There are several, in fact.
Shut the fuck up.
How? No, actually, I won't ask that question.
Apart from the incredibly uninspired title, The Blair Witch Project, a hardcore porn parody, there is also The Erotic Witch Project and The Bear Wench Project. And
Okay, see?
and it's 4 sequels.
Yep. See that one? 'Cause the other two, I was like, that is a real missed opportunity. But then you get to the Bear Wench Project, and I think, okay, say more.
People have a lot of time on their
Wow.
No, they just like money.
Look at that.
That part.
Creativity is not dead.
Oh, yeah. So, shall we dive in?
I
Do
think
it
let's
proper.
do it.
Let's talk about this movie in the way that we usually do.
Look, I want to say up top, I watched this on Amazon, the free version, and I had the captions on, and whoever did the captions for this movie must have been an evangelical, because not only do they remove all of the swearing, they also removed
up.
all the things that were like Jesus Christ and God damn, and they just
kidding?
replaced them with things. And I was like, you are like rewriting this movie. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess it can't be any worse than the actual writing. So go ahead.
Just like, gosh darn it, Josh.
It was really bizarre. It was like, oh, I think I know who did this now. Because at first I was like, maybe,
Oh, I don't have the flippin' map.
yeah, it was like that. It was like you literally
man.
changing the dialogue, not just like leaving words out.
Yeah.
I
Do you
hate
have like
that.
a parental setting on?
No, because at first I was like, oh, it must just be, I don't know, AI did it or whatever. And like they were just screening out, vulgarities. But then I noticed that it was, like Jesus Christ would be removed or God damn would be removed. And it's like, no, a non-Christian person would not have gone to that extent.
No.
So
That's great.
we open on Heather Donahue, director, in her apartment in 1994.
That's looking 90s as hell.
She
In a claw headband.
Claw headband.
Yeah.
She shows us her books for reference while we wait for Mike and Josh to arrive. Josh is first, and he's super late, which apparently was true of the actual situation. Josh was crazy late for the start of production, and everybody was a little pissed off. So that's
And
her.
she's sort of established as like an asshole
like,
right out of the
oops.
gate.
Oh no.
So these two are supposed to be friends in the sort of broader context of the movie, but apparently of all three of them, those two fought the worst during the production.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did hear this.
To such a point where I think at one point, like the filmmakers came in and had to separate them for a little while.
Shit.
Damn.
Yeah. So Josh shows us the 16 millimeter camera that they'll be using to shoot the actual footage of the movie, a device that he had no idea how to operate when they turned it over to him.
I also love in this part, one of them, I can't remember which one of them says it, but they say basically we've got so much battery power. And it's like they knew that if they did not say something up front, people would have been like, how
There's
did they
no
keep
way.
recording this whole time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
So they set it up.
Yep. Then they go get Mike, the sound guy, who I think is supposed to be like a stranger to both of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Or no, I think he is Josh's, like they either go to school together. I think they all go to school together, but like they're friends or they're like
acquaintances.
classmates or something. Like they know each other.
Yep. Yep. They go shopping and then they hit up a restaurant for something to eat where Heather lays out her vision for the documentary, which is to present the information as is, no cheese.
And then she immediately launches into one of the cheesiest monologues I have
gonna
ever
say.
heard.
Extra
Not
cheese.
successful.
Which is good, I think it's good at it.
I love it.
Yep. Then they hit the road to shoot the establishing location shots. We see the Burkittsville sign, and then they head to the cemetery where Heather lays out the foundations of the legend. She says that there's a large number of children at rest in the cemetery, and most of them died in the 40s. A bit of data that will become relevant in a few minutes. Then they drive into town and interrogate the town folk about the story. There's a store owner that drops the name Rustin Parr, and then a mother whose small child picks their nose and eats it and definitely doesn't want her mother to tell the story.
This
No,
is a
she
great
doesn't.
moment though, because I think so. The townsfolk are like they're a mix of actors and just normal people from the town, and I think she's just one of the non-actors. And
Yeah,
it's
it
pretty
seems that
great
way.
because the girl just keeps like covering her mouth, and you know when they were filming, they were like, "Oh fuck yes, this is the best."
Yeah.
This is
I do love when
She's like,
when she's like,
"No."
no, and she like grabs
Yeah.
her mother's face and she's like, no.
No. Yeah.
I don't want to hear this one again.
It's like, stop talking about it in front of her.
I know, honestly.
I
Scared
already
her.
watched it twice.
Yep. There's the guy in the yellow hat was an insert added after the movie was picked up by Artisan because Myrick and Sanchez never explained why Mike ends up the way he does at the end. They added this guy to add a little context. Rustin Parr apparently would have the kids face the corner while he murdered the others.
Now, somebody please explain to me why this is scary. Because I would argue murdering children is the scary part, not standing in
For
the
sure.
corner.
Because standing in the corner is like a punishment.
Yeah.
And to me, like a child,
Yeah,
punishing
murder
a
is too.
child while you're murdering the other one. But like doing something so strange as having them turn around to not watch
Guess.
you. But not, like, I don't know. The whole thing freaks me out.
It's the psychology and the picturing standing in the corner wondering like, oh, okay,
What's
like what's
happening behind
happening?
me?
And that's about to happen to me.
I
most
will
likely.
say this. This happens like in the opening, like the first 10 minutes of the movie. You have to hold this detail in your mind until the very end of the movie. And I still forgot about that, like when I first saw it. Because when I
Like,
saw,
wait,
when
what?
I very, very first saw it, when we saw the test screening of it, that guy is not in the movie. And so when she turns the corner at the end and Mike is just standing there, I was like, what the fuck is going on at the end of that movie?
Like, what was he doing? Peeing? What's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have set that up better.
Yeah.
If they only say it once in the beginning.
Yeah.
And this is my chief complaint about like the whole movie is that they don't really fill in anything. Like they don't even give you enough to fill in the gaps. They're just like, oh, and she's a witch. And I'm like, okay, great. Go on.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Yep. Meanwhile, the store guy explains that Rustin Parr was a local hermit who lured the 7 kids out to his house in the woods and killed them one by one. Then they head over to Mary Brown's place.
Fucking love this lady.
She is,
Mary
She
Brown
is the
forever.
star of the movie.
So
She really is.
when
She
when
is.
they first announced this production, they were trying to find people that they would get to sort of volunteer their time to work on the movie because obviously they don't have a lot of money. Nobody responded to those calls except for this woman who very much
yeah.
is this character.
Hell yeah,
Queen Mary.
Yeah.
Let's
She is
go.
the best. And now I will
She
say
is.
before you go into this though, this is, I think, probably the first time we get the real picture of like who is Heather's character, because she is so fucking awful and like intolerable in this scene. And I think this really sets up who she's going to be through the rest of the movie. And it kind of probably influences how people perceived her and then went on to treat her as a person, as the actor after that, because she is such a pushy asshole in this moment. She talks over her like repeatedly. Like if you'd assume if you're going to make a documentary, you would first have taken classes to learn how to interview people. That is, in fact, one of the things that you would do in order to do this. She clearly has no idea how to talk to people. Like even outside of the interview, she's rude, she's inconsiderate, and she's just fucking terrible, and she stays terrible for the rest of the movie. That's why I think a lot of people perceived her as she's like this bitchy character. And that I think has a lot to do with like the kind of 90s misogyny that we didn't quite call misogyny at the time.
Yep.
But she stays this character and she sucks. I get why people perceived her that way. I don't think that it was deserving of any of that, but I can't stand her in this thing.
And that's where keeping her name the same was a bad choice, because people can barely separate like actors from a character that isn't their name.
Yeah.
Like the kid who played Joffrey in Game of Thrones quit acting because
It's very
people were
much
such
that.
dicks to
That's the situation,
Yeah.
because she is just an asshole throughout this whole thing. And I know that there's no script, so she's deciding to do this, which I think is weird.
him. But in her head, it's probably a character. Like it's obviously a character.
I
she
think
wasn't
that's what she's
thinking
doing.
far
I think
enough
she's
ahead.
like, I'm the driven director, and in order to be driven, I have to be pushy. I have to be assertive because I'm a woman. And it's like, I don't know. I also wonder, is there like some internalized misogyny there, where she's like, oh, this is what a professional, successful woman must have to be. And it's like, well, not really. You're just kind of being an asshole.
Yeah, and she wasn't thinking. She didn't have the foresight, obviously, and I don't think I would either at this point.
No.
To know that was going to be such a fucking terrible choice later down the line.
I just think it's very weird. Like, it is a defining feature of this movie, the decisions she makes as an actor. And it feels weird to me, because I think now there's a lot of like this, it's, the sort of reappraisal movement that we have gone through, where people are like, oh, well, she's really a victim of, all this sort of like 90s misogyny and, sort of sexism. And I'm like, well, yes, she absolutely was. But also she sucks in this movie. She's playing this character like a total dick.
And it's like, woman or man.
Right.
She's just being a dick.
And I just don't know how much of that is like, is that what you you envision that person to be, or does she think that's how you would have to get ahead as a female director or whatever? And maybe it's true. I don't know.
Yeah, her character originally, when they were putting this together, before they had even like seen actors, is she was intended to be a man.
Oh,
and so when they had you could look it up. Their audition process for this was very interesting, and the reason
it sounds terrible.
The reason is the reason that they cast her against their original designs was because they just loved her in the audition. They asked her, "You're being paroled after 10 years of a 25-year prison sentence. Why do you think we should release you?" And her response was, "Well, I don't think you should." And they were like, "You're on. You're in. That's awesome."
That's a pretty amazing answer.
I feel like I would have wanted to see a little bit more, though. Like maybe read a hammy monologue and see how you do that.
No, that's it.
Yep. So Mary Brown insists that the local woods are haunted by the ghost of the witch. She also is quite insane and tells them a story about seeing a woman in the woods who was also really hairy and maybe a bear.
Oh no, she has fur like a horse, like horse fur. And I was like, horses have hair; they don't have fur.
Mary.
She's thinking on her feet.
Mary, babe.
Yeah,
I love her. If they're gonna remake this fucking movie, I want the Mary Brown story.
Yeah.
Like it's just her and her like daily life. She's like, here she goes to the post office, and people are like, oh hi Mary. And it's like 32 minutes of just her being like, I gotta mail a package, and it's gonna go to my sister in North Dakota, and she lives on a big farm.
This is, she is all of the people who would come into the record store at the last fucking minute before we closed and would have.
Or at like 9:30 in the morning, and I'd be like, oh, what?
And they had very, very, very specific special orders that we had to place, and we had to look everything up. And while we were looking that up, we had to hear the very specific story about why she was ordering this record in particular.
Like, this is the third It's Christmas Charlie Brown soundtrack you've ordered this week. And she'd be like, I know, but it's very minute detail.
Look, I need to give it to my brother-in-law, and my aunt also needs a copy of this. That lady was awesome.
We need the Mary Brown Project next.
Let's go.
You know the Charlie Brown Project?
The Mary Brown Project.
Starring Charlie Brown?
You guys finance it, I'll write it.
Oh, let's go.
So they retire to a motel, and then they get drunk together in their last night of comfort before they head to the woods to look for the witch.
And so this is when they leave the Mary Brown house. She's either in the car and she's asking Josh about the why he would use meters instead of feet.
Yeah.
And he's so again, because I said something to you earlier about the gender dynamics, and you were like, I don't really see any of it. But here's another interesting moment of it, because he is like bending over backwards to avoid admitting that he was wrong in what he just said to her, because she basically says like, well, why did you do it?
Oh yeah, she's up his ass about the focal length shit.
She's being a real pushy bitch about stuff, and he's just sort of like, oh, because it's this, it's centimeters, and see, it's right here, and she's like, yeah, but what's this one? And he's like, well, that's feet, and she's like, yeah, that's what I just said. She's
like, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yes, he refuses to admit that he said something, and it's such a trivial mistake. And am I talking myself into liking this movie? I don't think so, but maybe
I think
a little bit.
Because
he's so like refused. He's like, you are wrong. Woman,
character
you're wrong.
Development. Look at this. Yep. We're seeing it before our eyes.
You're gonna be a believer at the end of this.
Yeah, you are.
You know what?
So in the morning, they head out to the woods, find a pair of dudes fishing in the river, and talk to them about the witch. They, of course, know the legend.
Of course.
Yep. And now, this is one of my favorite details about the story that they have since tried to play down quite a bit. At one time, there was a version of the script which ended like an episode of Scooby-Doo, where these two guys are revealed to have been fucking with them the whole time.
I would
have loved that, actually.
Yeah. I want that.
It's like a weird kind of like safe version of Deliverance.
These darn kids.
That's funny.
Oh, I would have loved that.
Yeah. So
this scene has a really weird vibe to it, because again, they're probably not like experienced actors.
They're local talent.
Yeah, they're definitely local hires, and it has a very like high school improv. Like everything's a little bit stilted, and then like the one older guy is sort of like, I'm gonna tell you young kids about the lore of the Blair Witch. I'm like, well, are you really? Because it doesn't sound like you do. But the other one keeps like kind of talking over him, like, oh, you old people, old timers. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. This feels like something to like high school improv.
Yeah, these guys, they tell the story of Robin Weaver, who's a little girl who got lost in the woods. Locals sent out search parties to find her, but she comes back on her own, telling a story about an old woman in the woods whose feet never touched the ground.
That's fucking scary.
Yeah, say something about horsehair, man.
So then they head off into the woods in search of Coffin Rock, and Heather definitely knows where they're going. Coffin Rock was the location where 5 guys, searchers who were looking for Robin Weaver, got lost. And she came back fine, but these guys were ritually mutilated there.
Okay, I missed that part of why they're in the woods. I was like, I catch the part about how they're mutilated in the rock formation, or whatever. But like, I was like, why are these dudes just a bunch of guys just out in the, I mean, I know why a bunch of guys go out in the woods together, but,
the woods.
But I didn't understand why these dudes were out. Maybe the same reason. I don't know. But so I totally missed that they were looking for this little girl.
Yeah.
I thought they were just like 5 dudes going to the woods. None come out.
Burkittsville.
Yeah. So that night they make camp in the rain, and in the morning, Josh and Mike report to Heather, who slept heavily, that there were strange sounds in the woods during the night.
Can we just say, in the moment when they're in the tent before they go to sleep, and she's like, you guys wouldn't let me smoke a cigarette in the tent. I'm like, smoke a cigarette in the tent, you fucking savage.
You.
What's wrong with you?
That's pretty rancid.
Trying to light our tent on fire right now.
Oh,
and my God.
what a monster.
That's monstrous. 100%.
Yeah, there's a scene earlier, like when they're in the motel room, and she's just like smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, yes, the 90s.
The 90s.
Remember when you could just smoke everywhere? God, I loved it. God, I love smoking.
Later, we see the infamous map, as Heather explains, with some chagrin, that she knew where they were all along. But they actually got lost, and this scene of Josh actually giving her shit about getting lost is real because they did. Right off the bat, they all went the wrong way into the woods, despite the GPS device and radio directions that they were given to make it to all the locations they were expected to be at by the directors.
Killing it.
Yep.
So
they're genuinely
this
fighting.
Is part of why I get frustrated, because he's angry with her, and they're so you know, it looks like they're having an actual fight, because apparently they really are. But he's angry with her because they know there's no actual danger, because people know that they're there. They have radios, they have whatever. They can leave. So it doesn't read right. It's not the same as being 3 people lost in the woods. You would feel anxious about that. You would be frustrated with the other person probably, but you would feel very stressed and anxious. He's just mad because she fucked up and now they've been thrown off course or whatever. But like it doesn't read like actual stress or anxiety. It just reads like inconvenience and frustration. And I think that's why it doesn't feel right to me. It feels like the wrong reaction, the wrong emotional reaction to that.
I don't know. I get anxiety in that scene. Like when they're arguing, I feel like he's so angry because he is anxious.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I'll push back on you on that a little bit, because I'll say this, that they kind of intimate towards it later on, but they're kind of leaning on her. She had assured them that she had scouted these areas out and that she knew where she was going. And right off the bat, like, they're lost. And so I would also, like, if like we're only out here for like 3 days, I got to get back to work as soon as this shoot is over. Like, why are you wasting my time like this? Like, I thought you had your shit together. Like, I feel like that's like the appropriate response.
Maybe it just feels too early to me for that to be the reaction.
Yeah.
I think it's also still daylight too, so there's like even a little bit less anxiety. Like they still have time to get on track.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That does make sense. Because later, when it starts getting darker, like the anxiety should be the first level and then the anger. And here it's kind of like on the same level.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense during the day.
Yeah.
So later that day, they're on track to find the cemetery in the woods. Heather knows where they're going. Things are starting to get tense as Mike insists that they're lost again and doesn't like that Heather tapes everything.
And she says, we like shortcuts, don't we? And my note says, no, Heather, not when we're lost in the woods. We don't like shortcuts.
No, Heather.
Incorrect.
Yep.
Dummy.
Yeah. So after a river crossing and a bit of a walk, they encounter a strange squared off area of the forest with a scattering of small cairns. Heather remarks that Mary Brown told them a Bible story about Esau and piles of rocks.
Why didn't we hear that? I want to hear that.
I know. She's talking about...
I want to hear Mary Brown tell me a Bible story.
Yeah, she's telling
Hell
you.
yeah.
Genesis 28, 10 through 22, the stone of Jacob, who arranged some rocks to sleep on while they were on the run from his brother.
Oh, must have been so good. They're so lucky.
Yeah. So that night they make camp and they eat sausages on sticks. Now, believe it or not, this was the most expensive scene in the movie to shoot.
I'm obsessed.
Because they had to buy the sausage.
No, they had to buy the Gilligan's Island theme. Yep.
Oh,
that's funny.
So Josh,
I would think the Gilligan's Island theme would cost more money.
Who knows, man? It's
maybe that's why it shows up in so much shit in the 90s.
Anybody can buy the license. Yeah. So they had to get the rights for it, and that was like the most expensive thing that the production had.
That's so funny.
That's really funny.
So a little later on, they go back to the cairn site with a light on the 16 millimeter for more footage of the cairns. And then Josh accidentally kicks one over.
These people waste so much fucking film in this movie. Like, if you're an actual film student shooting with 16 millimeter, you wouldn't be wasting anything. And yet they're just like roaming around, filming his chest hair, doing dumb shit.
Yeah,
That's true.
So now they're awoken in the middle of the night to the sounds of breaking sticks. Mike stays back and Heather gives him shit for it. And the next day it rains and Heather is still fucking with Mike about staying behind. Mike thinks that there's someone in the woods messing with them, and he's wise to play it straight and not chase that sort of crazy assholes that would chase a bunch of kids around in the woods for laughs.
I feel like they're all this. This is the point where I'm like, is this movie still on? Because they're all.
We're like only 20 minutes in, dude.
It really it starts to feel tedious pretty quickly. They're all so unlikable that I don't care what happens. Like the stakes feel low. I don't even know what the stakes are at this point, but it all feels so. The stakes feel so low because I don't like any of them. I don't care if they get out of the woods. They all suck.
Stay in the woods.
You stand in the car for some reason.
Yep. So after breaking camp, they start heading back for the car, but Mike and Josh are not convinced that Heather knows where they're going, and things are getting worse, and Mike loses his cool.
He sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes a little nuts.
Yeah.
A lot of yelling.
And I'm not like, I don't buy this part either, though. Like, I feel like, would you be this confrontational with a stranger?
I think
With Heather?
some men would.
Yeah, I get. Well, and
I
again,
do
there's
think
that
that.
gender dynamic. Because I don't know that they would react this way if she wasn't a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
you're
a
very
solid
right.
point. And she's also just been very pushy this whole
Yeah.
time. So I would be this way with Heather. I feel like we're lost in the woods. You're
And
a
it's your
bitch,
fault.
and it's your fault.
That was
So
like,
I'm going to
you
yell
go
at
in
you.
the corner, Heather. You did
Yeah.
this. This was your idea.
Also, like, I don't
Honestly.
know how much time you guys spend in the woods. Like, I've done a little bit of camping. And the further out you get, the more remote things are, the weirder shit feels out in the woods.
Yeah.
The wilderness is, like, fundamentally scary.
I think
Yeah.
that's a huge missed opportunity in this movie because she says on more than one occasion, this is America. You can't get lost in America. And you absolutely can get lost in America.
Oh, it happens
Yeah.
all the
It's
time.
a
wild
That whole
statement.
fucking missing 411 phenomenon is some crazy
Yes.
shit, man.
Yeah, like I think they totally missed that opportunity. Like this is, you could really, because I think one of the things that this movie does, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the idea that like technology will protect you in some way. Like we have cameras. If we have cameras, we are we are middle class or like lower middle class Americans. We're white. We have cameras. Like we are here. We cannot get lost. We will be safe eventually. And I think that there's something there that's worth exploring, and they just kind of don't.
Yeah.
Because they don't explore much in this other than whatever's going on around them. And it's like that feels like an interesting part of the story that I would love to have hear more about, and they just kind of drop it.
No, I agree. That would be a really interesting thing to take like a little side quest on.
Little detour.
Because they never push back on her. Like, even though it was 1999, they still would have been like, yeah, people get lost in the woods and die all the time, or in the desert, or in wherever. Like, there are lots of places in this country where it takes days to even get there, and no one would ever find you.
Yeah, somebody should have challenged her on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Instead of just biting her.
Yeah.
No, she's the one who does the biting.
Oh, yes, she's the biter.
Yeah. So at night, they realize they're lost, and they're worried that they won't make it back home to resume their lives on time. So they make camp, and by night, there's more spooky noises in the woods. This time they catch it on DAT, so the audio is better, and it just kind of sounds like people breaking tree branches to me.
Is this when the kids giggle, though?
No, that's a little later on.
No, that's a little
Oh,
later.
okay. That
That
fucks
shit
me up.
fucked me up.
So
And
when,
that is Eduardo Sanchez's nephew.
Really?
Really?
What a terrifying young man.
He's the
Yeah.
same one who makes the little handprints on the
Oh my
walls.
God.
The fucking handprints. We'll get there.
When they like just,
Ugh.
yeah, when
Hate.
they wake up in the morning, they find 3 cairns set up in front of their tent. Everybody is pissed off, and the map is missing as well. So they've
I would probably just sit down and be like, well, it's been fun.
I would
just gonna
never.
stay here.
I would never stop crying. I would start crying in that moment and never stop.
Or I just run. I just start running.
Just one
see where I
direction.
end up.
Figure it out.
Like, bye.
They are pretty relentless in this. I would just be like, I just need a minute. Like,
like,
just chill
really.
out for just a fucking second.
It's a lot.
Yeah, when everybody started yelling at each other, that would be my exact reaction. It's just like, hold on.
Especially finding those cairns, I'd be like, can everyone just shut the fuck up so I can process that we're gonna die? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So they eventually settle their beef, and they travel on, eventually reaching a creek. Mike starts laughing because Heather got wet while crossing the creek, and it looks like things are lightening up. But then Mike confesses to losing the map in the creek on purpose, and then they all go ballistic.
I don't
Which-
understand
fair.
this part. Why would you throw them? So I started, one of my questions in my notes is the witch, to the extent that there is an actual witch, affecting their minds, or is he just being an asshole?
No, they're just starting to crack under the pressure.
Yeah, I think it's just
because why
to
would
crack.
you throw there's no plausible explanation for why someone would think that was a good idea to just be like, who needs this anymore? Like,
I think
after
he's
2
just
days?
a dumbass.
Low-key such an alpha male thing, though.
really
like,
is.
I don't need a map.
Like, who needs a fucking
Well,
map?
he just keeps saying like, well, it wasn't doing us any good, and it's like, well, it
Yeah.
kind of was actually, but like, it just doesn't. That does not seem like an impulsive thing you would do.
Yeah.
I feel like that is one of those things where it's like, I don't know. It rang true to me that like
Same.
a guy would do that, especially a guy that
I feel like a
age.
guy would do it very publicly. Like he would grab it and rip it up. He wouldn't just sort of spirit it away under cover of darkness and then toss it in
That's
and
fair.
not
Yeah.
say anything about it for 2 days or whatever.
No, that is fair. I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
The thing
Maybe he
the thing
did it
that gets me is
quickly
he
and
says,
then-
I kicked the map into the creek. I'm like,
That I also noticed.
that's
I was like, you
stupid.
kicked a
you
map.
kicked the map?
And nobody caught that. Like,
Yeah.
no one
Well,
saw you
then-
punted into the fucking
And then I'm
creek.
like, were you trying to play it like he didn't mean to, but now he's trying to make it seem like he meant to? Like he did it accidentally, but now he's trying to be like, yeah, fuck that. I kicked the map.
Yeah, it's like a
'cause
critical
that
plot
doesn't
point that
work.
makes no sense at all to me.
yeah.
If they had made it like that, if they had made it clear, like, no, it was definitely an accident and he's just being a dick and trying to like be like, no, I meant to. I threw it in there. I don't give a shit.
I could see
That
that.
I would have
That
been
would
like,
make
okay.
that I would absolutely, because that
Yeah.
is a display of masculinity or of aggression
Yeah.
or something. But to just be like, nope, I took it from your pocket while you were
kicked
sleeping,
it.
and then I chucked it in the water 7 hours ago and didn't say anything.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
So they eventually cool off, keep walking until they find a weird clearing in the woods where there's dozens of those stick man things hanging from trees.
Oof.
Spooked, the boys start to leave without Heather, and Mike starts to lose his shit.
That's so shitty that they're just like, bye, Heather.
Bye, Heather.
I'm not
be
trying
so
to give them
upset.
this. I have been out in the woods, like walking around, hiking and shit, and you will just come upon things that do not make sense.
I just want to
And I
say,
hate
for
that.
the record, everybody, he has now twice made it seem like he's an outdoorsman.
I am not. Don't. I'm not going to give anybody that impression, but I've done a bit of it. There's like spooky shit in the woods, and I like to think that
Always.
people just like are like, you know what, this is gonna spook some motherfucker who comes walking along here, so I'm just gonna hang this stuff up.
Oh, 100%.
There's got to be.
I like that.
there's gotta be- I do like that idea. I don't have the motivation to do such a thing, but I kind of respect the game. If that
I
is
will say, when this came out, it was actually after this came out. It was like well after this came out, actually, that I started dating my now husband.
Oh, I know
And
this story.
my sister was terrified. My older sister was terrified of this movie. Fucked her up. She hated it. The stick figures in particular, like she would not look at them. She hated it. It freaked her out.
She hates
So when
folk art to this day.
Hated it. And so we were like, I think I was babysitting my nephews at the time, like her children. And John, we were dating, so he came over. And we decided to fuck with her. And I was like, wow, we went so hard. We literally found sticks outside that like put these little stick figures together, dozens of them.
The children were sleeping
They
at
were
this
sleeping.
point.
This was late at night. And we hung them around her bedroom.
Jesus Christ.
And then just like, we're like, okay, bye. And like, we left when she came home and she was like, thanks so much. And she just walked into her bedroom later that night to like dozens of these.
The way I
And-
would have killed you.
And that's when I knew we would get married. Because we did that together.
You also put a picture of Samara from The Grudge in her toilet,
In her toilet.
like on the
we
the
hid
top of the
pictures
toilet
of her
seat.
around the house.
I can't do anything like this. I don't have any
Yeah.
of these fun opportunities.
Yeah, it was great. I love when people are terrified of shit and you can exploit that.
Michael was afraid
And
of the
that's why she's a
Leprechaun for a
devil.
really long time, but
Oh,
I've made him
shit.
watch the Leprechaun movie like 9 times at this point.
Garth, I'm the leprechaun.
Cool it, okay?
I'm the leprechaun.
Stop it, all right?
Don't try and steal me, pot of gold.
So see,
That's your
I
version
made
of
you
that.
guys watch it too.
you exploited it.
All right. So that night they make camp and decide not to have a fire because the light seems to draw out whatever is following them. In the night, they hear something in the woods, maybe? It's honestly really hard to hear it. Supposedly it's children laughing and babbling and maybe a baby screaming.
I hate it.
Is this when one
I
of them
hate it so
says,
much.
no redneck is this creative? And I was like,
Yes.
well, that seems very unfair.
It's very so classist.
I think it sounds
Yeah.
super duper fair.
Yeah. And then something starts messing with their tent and they go running out into the night.
This fucked me. Seeing to this day, I see this scene and I get so unsettled.
I see this scene in my head right now,
Fucks
and
me
I
up.
have chills covering my
Is
body.
this when
Fucks
she's screaming,
me
"This is
up.
or that's not the way to get out of here," or something like
No,
that?
this is the part where she's like, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?"
Oh, I feel like her freakouts really bother me.
So in
I
this
love her
scene,
freakouts.
Oh,
they are actually being chased by somebody. And
Oh, really?
And
he was dressed like the witch. Well, he was dressed like something. But
so
he
so
was
what, so
maybe
it
supposed to be a
was
witch.
the movie's art director all of a sudden starts running after them wearing like
No.
head to toe white, including like a head sock. And so I think it's Mike or Josh has the camera, and he was instructed to, at a certain point, turn and like catch a glimpse of it, but he forgets to, and so we never see it.
Oh, that's so
There
shitty.
actually, I believe, is a photograph of it though, and it looks real bad. Like I think one of the reasons why they didn't end up doing it was like, because you're supposed to see the witch at one point, and it's a man dressed as the witch at what I think is the story, but like it looked so shitty that they were like, never mind.
They're like, let's not do this.
But at night on night vision camera and just like a quick glimpse of it, I feel like that would have
Oh, sure,
been.
because it would have just
what
been
this
this,
needs.
it would have just been like this awesome, like bright white blur in the forest for
Yeah.
just a second. I would have loved
Yeah.
that. I would have really appreciated
Agreed.
that.
That is what this
Yeah.
movie needs. It needs more of
Just
that
a little
weird
bit of
shit.
that.
Like, because it's just like, oh, we heard something. I'm like, you heard it, but I could barely hear it. So I don't even
Yeah.
really know what it is. Someone
That's
shook your
why-
tent. Okay. But like, I need to give me something. Give me something to hold on to here. So I know what I'm supposed to be afraid of, because this movie does not frighten me in the slightest. And I don't understand why people think it's scary.
That hand on the tent, like the little kid hand across it, gets me every fucking
Me
time.
too.
Wait, what?
And then there's one
Yeah,
moment
I do not know what you're talking about right
it
now.
unsettles the shit out of it. And there's one moment during that scene where you can kind of hear kids a little bit.
Yeah, and you hear a giggle.
And you hear two of them sound almost like they're like lifting something. Like they make like this like grunting
Like a
noise
grunt, like a
together. For some reason, that one noise of these two, like at least a couple little kids like lifting something and making a noise freaked me the fuck out, because I was like, that should not be outside your tent.
So
It's
I
so
I thought
scary.
that was a woman. So maybe that's why I'm like less affected. Not
See, I took it as kids.
Children or a woman, I don't think it would matter either way for me. But I thought I hear it as like a woman giggling,
Oh,
and
see,
maybe
I hear
that's
kids.
why I was
I
just sort
do
of like,
hear
oh,
kids.
okay.
And if you listen to that part, listen carefully, and you'll hear a moment
Oh, I am never watching this movie
during the
again.
craziness. But during that craziness, you'll hear that like weird grunt thing that these kids do, and I don't know why it fucked me up.
No, it's fucking me up right
Right?
now.
It's like very unsettling, the sound.
I also will say, like you were just saying, I don't understand how anybody is scared of this. I will say, I saw this movie for the first time when I was 5 years old. So this is like core memory,
Yeah, it's
like
fucked
scary level shit for me.
That's the
And
story I
think-
wanted you to tell. I prompted you to tell it. You didn't tell the story.
Oh, did you prompt me to tell it?
Yes.
Woo, right over my head. I saw it for the first time when I was 5. So I think that's why.
And it wasn't me.
It was not Alaina.
I
no.
did not do that to her.
I
when
had
she was
really-
5.
I had a terrible, terrible guardian who was like, yeah, just watch it.
It was
And I was
not
like,
me.
okay. So I think that's why, like, my little 5-year-old brain filled in the blanks. And to this day, it scares 27-year-old me.
Oh, so
Like,
you're
this
just
movie-
reacting to trauma.
That's exactly it.
I mean,
Every
what
day.
is life really if not?
That's true. See, this is the thing with this movie is like, I think it doesn't terrify me today. Like I can watch it. I could fall asleep to it.
That's
like
crazy.
That's not the problem. I think it's like the nostalgia is what I love. And those little moments of the movie that I think are genuinely scary. Like that,
I'm
like
not
the hand
kidding
on
you.
the tent and shit.
I will drive home tonight fucking terrified. Like, genuinely.
Well, please be careful when you do that.
I will.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. So, yeah. Also, to that thing, how they were doing this was it was just a bunch of people out in the forest with like several large speakers, which is why they're constantly like, it sounds like it's all around us, or because it literally was. It was like several people playing these sounds like all at the same time.
And it's just, well, I think it's either one or two voices, and it's just looped.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
freaky.
So yeah, now the three hide out in the forest for the night. When they get back to the campsite, they find the place is trashed and a lot of their stuff is gone.
Actually, wait, one more comment on that last scene. I totally would have, because she insists on putting on pants before they get out of the tent. I absolutely would have done the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
If someone was trying to murder me, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I have to put on pants before I get out of here.
My
Agreed.
ass is not going to be out when I get murdered. Like, let's give me
I
some
need to get my
sweatpants.
If I have
shoes and my
anything to
socks
do with it.
on.
Yeah.
Josh's stuff is covered in some sort of slime. There's more arguing. The witch seems to be targeting Josh. Mike freaks out.
So this is the thing, like, why they're pulling on all of these things, like, why slime? Why, there's no
Yeah.
explanation for any of this. It's like you're just sort of grabbing paranormal tropes and sort of smushing them all together and being like, here you go, it's a slimy mess. Why?
Yeah, it is.
No, I do
it is
agree
like
that
a-
I wish
Yeah.
more was like just
A little more cohesive.
Yeah.
Also, they cut it out of the theatrical run, but in early screenings, including the one that I saw, Heather bites Mike in this scene.
Love it.
And you don't.
That's
you
hilarious.
don't see it here, but he actually says, "If you bite me one more time."
Yeah. And no, she
the fuck?
because she says something like, or like, if you try to take this camera from me, I'll bite you again.
Oh, you know what? I think I have seen that version.
I have not.
I'm
'Cause
fine
that
with
sounds
that. With
really
that sort
familiar.
Of, discontinuity. I love the idea that she's just like, I'm just gonna fucking bite you, okay?
That's amazing.
So on the move again, Josh remarks that he understands why Heather records everything because it makes everything less real. Then Josh cracks completely, needs a little me time. And they're out there.
I get it.
Yep. Oh man, I do too. Like, just let me chill for a minute over here. Don't come
Who
over.
doesn't?
Definitely not
Yeah.
crying.
Yeah. Leave me alone.
So they're dreading another night in the woods. They sing the national anthem, and then they reach a spot where it becomes clear that
Obviously.
they've been walking in circles.
And also, like,
Oh.
when he needs, like, he's sitting there freaking out, and he's like, I just need a minute. She's like, we gotta keep going. And it's like every time she's filming shit, they're like, can we just go? And she's like, I just need a few more minutes. And they have to fucking wait around while Heather films God knows what. And then he's like pissing his pants and whatever. And he's like, just give me a second. She's like, we gotta go. We gotta keep moving. And it's like, oh, now it's important that we keep moving. When the witch or whatever is chasing us, the slimy witch. She's
Slimy witch.
covered in horsehair. Beautiful
horse
fur.
Yep. So facing another night at camp, Josh starts to get real nasty towards Heather, menacing her with her own camera. Mike, usually the antagonist, becomes the mediator, but it's not working. And everybody is now fully over the edge, but by night they seem to have cooled off. And they reminisce about all their favorite foods, and then they sleep.
Which, how do you go to sleep in this moment?
I know.
No.
I know.
I think you kind of have
no
to
way.
at some point, though. Like, you have to just shut down.
I don't know, man.
I don't know that I could.
don't know.
My anxiety would say
Just
otherwise.
Yeah.
pure adrenaline, just
Yeah.
carrying you through.
Terror.
Yep. In the morning, they find that Josh has vanished. And now
Hi, girl.
hours go by. Josh hasn't returned. He left all of his stuff, including the camera.
I'd be like, well, we barely knew ye, but see ya, Josh.
Good luck, Josh.
Pour one out.
Yeah, good luck.
This is the first time where I feel like their reactions are genuine to me. They feel authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a really good scene, I think.
Yeah, because
When it
they're
comes
like,
to, like,
they're-
how they
they're-
react.
They're very obviously like very confused. Like, we have to get out of here, but like, what the fuck do we do? We can't like not look
Could
for
we
this
leave
guy.
without him?
And then they don't find him, and it's like, well, shit, what now?
It's also interesting that she's left with the guy she doesn't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just an arbitrary decision. Like, it was like,
That's
gotta get left
interesting.
with one of them, and it just so happens that it's him, or if there was like a reason for that. But it's an interesting choice.
yeah. And there's
I
that,
feel like
there's
that's
that
on
moment where
purpose.
he's
I think
he's
it
sort of
should be.
rocking by himself, and she goes over and kind of puts an arm around him and kind of comforts him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the dynamic.
So in the night, they make camp again and are awoken by the sound of Josh screaming in the forest. And they go out looking for him. And eventually, they start to doubt that it was Josh at all. So now in the morning, Heather finds a bundle of sticks tied up with a ribbon of Josh's shirt. She picks it up, sort of tosses it away. Now, the directors...
But she moves it like it's like dog shit. Like she's got a stick. She's like, I'm just gonna move it over, or like it's like a frog in front of your tank. Like, I'm not gonna hurt you. You just got to get out of the way. And she
has
sort of
slime on it.
very gingerly moves it out of the way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to touch that shit either.
Now the directors actually expected her to open it, like take the bait and open it and find out what's inside. But since they didn't,
Who would do that?
I know they had to send a PA out to tell her to do it over and open the bundle.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I would probably open.
so
the
like
bundle.
out of nowhere, like some dude just emerges from the forest and is like, "Hey Heather, hey, I got some bad news for you."
Did he have to use like a safe word? Because he comes out of the woods and he's like, taco, 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 everybody.
Taco was the safe word.
There you go.
Yep. And they actually did eventually try to use the safe word, and it did nothing.
That is not fair.
Because
Oh my
when
God.
they used it, the entire crew was off having dinner and like had their fucking radios off. And
They
so
were
they're like
having
on the radios
tacos.
going, "Taco, come in, taco, taco." They're like, "Well, shit, what now?" It was during the scene
Oh my God.
very early on where it's raining. Apparently it rained really, really bad and like flooded their tent and like made all of their shit wet. And,
Oh no!
and they were like, "We can't fucking camp like this." Like, and so they wandered around until they found a house and like knocked on the door and were like, "Hello, we've got a problem." And the people were kind enough to be like, "Yeah, come in and like, dry off and shit." And when the
And
filmmakers,
those people were like, oh, these fucking kids again. Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
like these idiots.
I don't know, like,
You
I
got
think
all
a
your
year later when the
interviews.
movie came out, they were like, "More of these motherfuckers, god damn it."
yeah.
But then eventually, like the filmmakers did catch up and were like, "Okay, fine." Like here, they put them up in a motel for the night.
Wow, what a
Damn.
terrible
I
experience.
know this
making this
Seriously.
movie
fucking
was
is cursed. It's worse than like the whole cast of Poltergeist.
literally.
But not as
Damn.
bad as Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Woo.
So we don't really get a good look at it, but this bundle contains some of Josh's hair, his teeth, a finger, and his tongue. But all I can ever really make out when I watch this movie is the teeth.
I thought it was a tongue this time because I remembered it being a tooth, and then I was like, oh, it looks kind of like his tongue, but they don't linger on it. Like, again, there's a missed opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to find this frightening, but I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. I
And
wish
like,
they'd
but
shown more
you're not
of
even
it.
looking at it long enough to be like, oh, I can start to conjure up some images in my head. It's like, it just looks like a red blob.
Because, like, I'm like, have her be. Everybody's weird. Like, have her take a fucking little twig and dig around in there for a second, like trying to figure out what she's seeing.
Yeah.
And then we at least see a little bit more.
Yeah,
of
like
it.
I wouldn't have opened it, but if I did open it, I would then do that to be like, "What the fuck is
Absolutely.
this?"
Like, at what
And
point
then
should-
I could
what is
freak out.
At one
happening?
point, she even remarks like, "Oh, there's like some blood on here." Like at that moment, I would have been like, "You know what? I don't think I need to see what's inside this bundle."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shirt. There's blood. I'm
Like,
good.
is it it's gonna be a penis, isn't it? I don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
It's equivalent to do not read the Latin.
Yep.
Like, don't open that.
Yep. So Heather hides this from Mike, tries to pretend that she didn't see anything, even though she is clearly not all right.
Yeah, look, you are not in a position to be hiding anything from anybody at this point.
No.
You got to just tell everyone. You got to be straight up with each other.
Yeah.
You got to be like, I think there's a horse-haired witch chasing us. Very
She's
beautiful,
so furry.
beautiful fur, beautiful,
Furry.
beautiful horse fur.
So that night, in first person, Heather turns the camera on herself and records herself apologizing to everybody's mom for getting everybody killed. And it's the famous scene from
The
the,
most
movie that
iconic.
they used on all the posters. It's the one
And
that everybody knows. It's the one they got.
It's a little hard to take her seriously when there's snot pouring down her face.
And
That's
here's
why
the
I
thing.
take her seriously.
That's the thing. I think it's like that.
That's real shit.
I just
That's
think
real
of the
snot.
scary,
It was
the
such a
thing from
choice.
Scary Movie where they do the.
Yep.
That's all I can picture.
Yeah.
And it was parodied so many times.
I think the only other
So
the
many
only other like
times.
thing from a movie that got parodied harder was Bullet Time from The Matrix, but like it felt like
Yes.
it felt like 20 years later they were still doing the I'm so sorry thing.
Yes. I'm so scared.
It's also weird that they put everything on Heather. Like, he's the one who kicked, how do you kick a map, into the river. Like, it's not all
Yeah.
her, but she acts like it's all her fault. Like,
That's a
if
very
it were me, I'd
woman
be like,
thing to
"Oh,
do."
we're
I was
real
just gonna
sorry
say.
about it, but also
Woman.
he did throw the map in the water. But I'm still really sorry. But it's just, I don't think it's all my fault.
Yeah, just
That's
so
what
everybody
we
knows
do.
this doom was a group effort.
Yeah. That's what we do. We're like, it's probably my fault. I'm just gonna
sometimes-
apologize.
Oh, yeah,
People
I
bump into
definitely
me
am
and I say
prone to that sort of
sorry.
thing
Yeah.
where I'd be like, oh god, like everybody's dead and it's fucking my fault.
It's all my fault.
Yeah. Well, and she wanted to make the documentary too.
Yeah.
So That's the big part.
Yeah.
Well, I get rejected from an apartment, and I'm like, well, that makes sense. You're garbage. Why would anybody want you to live here? So I guess I get it.
Oh.
So that night, there's more screaming in the forest from Josh, except now we know that he's dead, even though Mike doesn't. The screaming lures them to a jacked up old house in the forest. And of course, they go in.
I mean, at this point, why not?
I know. Why would
At
you?
this point, what do you got to lose?
No fucking way would I go
You're
in
gonna
that
die.
house.
Yeah.
Like, you might as well die in this house.
Yep.
I would walk right past it. That's it. Goodbye.
Yep. So this house stood for like another year after the movie came out, and the town was so fucking not Burkittsville, but the town like that sort of owned the area was so tired of people going in there and like getting hurt and shit that they were like, we gotta knock this fucking thing over. And the movie studio and like a group of fans were like, no, you can't, and they kind of like petitioned the like the county or maybe even the state, like, this is like a significant thing. You need to like put it on the registry. You can't knock it down. And they succeeded. And then a year later, the town knocked it over anyways.
They said, fuck that petition.
Can you imagine being like the mayor of Burkittsville? And they're like, well, you're going to run again? Be like, no, absolutely not.
Not moving.
He's like, no, did you know they're making another movie? No, I'm out of here.
Like,
If I could quit now, I would.
I have to go.
I love that the town was just like, fuck your feelings, and then just knocked it over. Like, no.
Yeah. So inside, there's weird symbols and like children's handprints on the walls, which was a detail that, even though I'm pretty grumpy about this movie, I do like that detail quite a bit.
That was a nice,
Yeah.
it's a nice
That
touch.
detail's fucked up.
Scary.
Little kid things fuck me up.
Same.
But it's these things that's like every time they show up, they're so effective. They just
Yes.
needed some more of them.
More.
Yeah, I agree
I can
with
see that.
Yeah. They continue to hear the screaming, which lures them to the basement. Mike gets to the basement first and is like immediately maybe hit on the head or something. He falls over and he drops the camera. And then Heather chases him to the basement, fumbles around for a bit until she turns a corner, finds Mike standing in the corner facing it, and then she's hitting on the head maybe, and then falls over, dropping the camera. Camera on its side, glitching out. Cut to black. The Blair Witch Project.
Bean.
That ending fucks me up.
I don't know. I feel like they didn't earn any of this.
Really?
That's kind of my thing. There's no cohesive background to the spooks. It's like a grab bag of stuff that is just all kind of disconnected. And I feel like if there was some connective tissue, just an explanation here or there to sort of say like, to at least communicate to us, the viewer, like why this weird thing is significant or why we should be, or kind of hint in a way as to why we should be afraid of this, it would have gone a long way.
Yeah, because if you're not going to show something, which I understand why they don't have any budget to do anything. So you can't really show spooky stuff because you don't have effects. You got to then build out your story more, but they don't have a script. So it's like, you're not doing either one of them. You're not giving me enough to know what I'm supposed to be afraid of or why I'm supposed to feel uneasy. And you're not putting enough like kind of quick, flashy, jump scary stuff in there to make me react. So all I have is three people lost in the woods, wet and angry with one another. And I don't really like them either. So I'm not bought into any of what, like, I don't care what happens to them.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of that's ultimately, I don't really have a problem with the characters or the cast at all. I think that they're actually all quite good, and I find their plight relatable in, some way. I too would be anxious and frightened and angry and scared and shit. Plus, they were like, the filmmakers were giving them rations every day, and every day they would give them less and less in order to make them grumpier.
Angrier.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I totally get it. Like, I get that part.
If I were there, I'd be like, you should go in that house. Go calm down in that house over there.
My personal problem with it is that I just don't feel like anything really happens in this movie.
I think, yeah, that I can understand that. And that's, I'm on the fence because now I think going over it one more time made me realize how little.
It is a quick one.
Yes, come to our side.
But the things, but I still love it because the things that do work so well in it. And I feel like they were so close to having such an effective movie. And for the time it was effective. So it's like, But now I'm like looking at it and I'm like, you were so like, I look at like I love Hell House LLC. I think that's a great like documentary style found footagey kind of movie.
I think we talked about that on our roundup. Like
we talked about the last
one. Oh, the last one. No, but the first one is
I love the original one.
Good.
Yeah, the original one is really good. And I think it's like because they figured out the right balance of like they have a whole scene of them sitting at like hanging around a bar and just like shooting the shit about running different haunts.
And it's you get to know them as as characters. You know kind of who they are. In this, all I know is like the worst parts of your personality.
And I think that they struck a really good balance with that in Hell House, like where they would like balance that out with something really subtle but really fucking scary. That like you got a glimpse of something or something weird happened that you were like, ugh, and then they went back to the normal shit. And I think here they hadn't figured that out yet, that like you need to have that balance. Right. You can't just have the found footagey thing. But I still love it.
And if you're just launched into this, because you spend a little bit of time before they get lost in the woods, but from all what I can tell is they are the same in the woods as they are in town. They're just yelling. Like we don't see them as like, you know, any prior relationship that they have with each other, or like, you know, their nicer sides or whatever. It's like, oh, you're kind of a pushy asshole here and you're a pushy asshole here, except you're just doing it louder now.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question because this is a movie that came out, what is it now, 25 years ago?
Yep. Oh my God.
I did not see this until very recently, but when we watch these films, we often end on how has this movie aged? Does it still hold up? Ash, this was your suggestion. I'm going to go to you first. How do you think this holds up 25 years later?
For me, it holds up, but I can see how it would not necessarily hold up for others because, like, obviously we know that they're alive now, so I think that takes away a huge portion of the scare.
But if they were dead, it'd be good.
If they were dead,
it would have been awesome.
If this was actually real and the tagline worked.
Okay.
I think it holds up to an extent. Because it's still got, like I said, the things that work, they work. Like that and the handprints on the walls and the hand going down the, you know, the tent and the little weird kid sounds out there. And I feel like there's certain things that if they just shush them a little bit more, it would have been like super, super effective. But to me, there's so much nostalgia here that it's almost hard
to rank on it,
to like dig out of the nostalgia of it all, because I just love it so much because of that. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
I think that's a lot of what it is, really. What it comes down to is it just for a particular generation, it landed perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of you guys were like, you were kids, you were teenagers. This was a movie that you were going to with friends and stuff like that, you know, and so it just, its timing was absolutely perfect. And also, there is certainly a novelty to it because, like, found footage wasn't really a new thing, but it certainly was not common.
Yeah.
And so, like, this was like a very like kind of new idea to a lot of people. So yeah, like I can understand like why it definitely gets its claws in a lot of people just because of that. In the years since, I feel like found footage is a really kind of crappy trope. I don't particularly care for it because it's so seldom done very well, but there are a few that do it very well, and they wouldn't have existed without this movie at all, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. You know. And that's the other thing. I think it really is, it's a unique idea. Do I think it was executed perfectly? No. But I think the idea behind it was really cool, and I love a folk horror, which this obviously did not go full throttle with at all.
Tried, though.
But the idea of that is so good, and I think it was such a good idea to start with that. So I think it has such a good concept to it.
The concept is perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I land, is that it's it's an interesting thing that happened. It's a phenomenon that really took over. Do I like the movie? No, I don't know that it holds up, but I also don't think it was very good the first time. But I think it's an interesting time capsule of like, this is how we closed out the 20th century.
The millennium.
Yeah. Like I think really for me, I love the theory of it. I just think that the actual application of it is tedious. So Blair, that's where I kind of land on the Blair Witch Project.
It will also give you vertigo if you have any kind of issues with vertigo.
Oh yeah,
That's true.
I have heard from so many people who are like, yeah, I remember when it came out, so many of my friends were like, I can't watch that fucking movie.
I can't watch it. Yeah, my husband can't watch it because he gets vertigo.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah, he just can't do it.
Just watch it with a side eye the whole time.
Yeah, that's
all right. Well, Ash, Alaina, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
This was fun.
Yeah, we do this anytime.
You guys are a lot of fun, and maybe we don't like the movie, but you guys are certainly not the minority on this one. We kind of stand alone on this one. So thanks for being here to kind of hash it out with us.
Anytime.
If you got pluggables, let's hear them. I mean, everybody who's listening to this knows y'all and knows where to find your podcast.
Got it.
Where's Mikey? I don't know our handles.
Yeah, Mikey in here.
You can listen to
he's 12 feet to my
You're
right.
like, you don't have to get him. You can listen to Morbid, The Rewatcher, and Scream anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can follow Morbid at Morbid Podcast on Instagram, and I think that's the only social media we have for it.
Yeah, we have a TikTok. But
we have that too.
I don't really know what we do there.
Try to find it. Mikey works on that really hard. Actually, he puts all the graphics.
Yeah, Mikey's really good at that.
But we don't do. We're not on there. And then the Rewatcher page is at _Rewatcher, I think. I don't know. Go find our podcast and listen to them. We would love that.
All right.
And I have a book coming out September 17th called The Butcher Game. So pre-order that.
There you go. Dave.
Yeah.
What are we doing next?
Bring Me the Axe. We will be back in 2 weeks with our first Bring Me the Axe episode for Pride Month on one of my favorite horror movies, 1963's The Haunting.
Yes. Oh my God, we're gonna overdose on Dutch angles.
Yeah, it is Canted Angle the movie.
All right, so be back here in a week when 99 Cent Rental takes on Siege. And get back here at 2. We do The Haunting.
Yep.